Once upon a time, in the kingdom of Animalia, there was a phylum called Nematoda, also known as the roundworms, which are thread-like. The identifying characteristics of nematodes. They are pseudocoelomate. And what do you think that means compared to the acoelomates we've seen so far? Pseudocoelom, a fluid-filled body cavity that bathes the internal organs, provides hydrostatic pressure and helps keep their round shape. It lubricates the tissues, provides a medium for intercellular signaling and nutrient support. That is super important. Pseudocoelom allows roundworms to have a one-way digestive tube. So, for example, there's no gastrovascular cavity, no sac body plan. These have a separate mouth and anus. They possess only longitudinal muscles, so food passes slowly through. As you can see by this diagram, the important feature here is the cuticle, which is the waxy outer layer that prevents them from drying out when they're in, or from being destroyed when they're inside somebody's intestines. Other neat nematoda facts: this phylum contains many parasitic and free-living species and are extraordinarily diverse. They've adapted to nearly every environment and elevation or depth that there is. They represent 90% of all animals on the ocean floor. Numerically, they comprise 80% of all animals on Earth. Their bodies are unsegmented, and they are born with a certain number of cells that increase in size as they grow. This equals utily, which means it doesn't divide its cells. They exhibit cephalization with a ventral nerve cord. There's no respiratory or circulatory system present, all performed by diffusion. Their epidermis secretes a cuticle made of collagen to keep it from drying out, and this cuticle molts as the worm grows. The reproduction of nematodes. The sexes are separate, dioecious, rather than hermaphroditic. The stylet is a piercing mouthpiece that some nematodes possess. Metacarpus is part of the pharynx. Parasitic species of nematodes include whipworms, which invade the human large intestine by eating undercooked meat. They're responsible for the disease trichinosis, and the reason that you have to cook pork extra. Hookworms penetrate the skin and invade the small intestine of dogs, cats, and humans. They cause anemia as they suck blood voraciously. Pinworms invade the upper parts of the colon. Males are 1 to 4 millimeters, and females are 8 to 13 millimeters in length. This is a typical childhood disease. Females leave intestinal tract when host sleeps, and they lay eggs around the anus, which makes it super itchy. They can be transferred through clothing, bedding, and poor hygiene. Phylurids are a family of nematodes which invade many different parts of the body. These are responsible for a range of diseases, including elephantiasis and loa loa. The lymphatic system returns fluids to the circulatory system. If you get phylurids in there, they reproduce so fast that they can block the lymphatic system and cause the elephantiasis. Ascariasis, caused by Ascaris lumbricoides. Ascaris infection is prevalent in tropical regions with poor hygiene. Host becomes infected by ingestion of food contaminated with fecal matter containing eggs. Diagnosis is usually made when the worms are passed through stool or vomit. Upon autopsy, one 2-year-old South African girl was found to have 796 worms in her ileum. The life cycle of Ascaris lumbricoides. Upon ingestion of the eggs, the larvae hatch, burrow through the intestine, reach the lungs, and then migrate up the respiratory tract. The larvae are then re-swallowed and mature in the intestine up to 30 centimeters in length. Larvae anchor themselves to the intestinal wall. See the next slide for a detailed life cycle. The first part, adult worms live in the small intestine. A female may produce approximately 200,000 eggs per day, which are passed with the feces. In the areas of 2 to 3 on the diagram, fertilized eggs develop embryos and become infective after 18 days to several weeks after ingested, depending on the environmental conditions. In pictures 4 and 5, the larvae hatch and invade the intestinal walls and travel via the circulatory system to the lungs. In picture 6, the larvae mature further in the lungs, which takes 10 to 14 days, and then migrate to the throat and are swallowed. In picture 7, upon reaching the small intestine, they develop into adult worms. In picture 8, between 2 and 3 months are required from ingestion of the infective eggs to oviposition by the adult female. Adult worms can live 1 to 2 years. In elephantiasis, it's a disease characterized by a thickening of the skin and underlying tissues, which can be caused by invasion of the lymph nodes by nematodes. Certain nematodes are transmitted by mosquitoes. These mature and lodge themselves in the lymph nodes of the host. It affects the legs and genitals. It's more prevalent in tropical climates with over 120 million people affected worldwide. Ecological roles of free-living nematodes. They are decomposers. They recycle bacteria, fungi, and decaying, rotting organic matter back into the soil. This means they are very important to the chain of energy production and matter recycling of the earth. The negative effects of parasitic nematodes. Parasitic nematodes invade many different types of crops and often cause crop death. They attack the bark of forest trees, pine wood nematode. They invade the intestine of many animals and cause sickness and often eventual death if untreated.